Hello everyone, this is Sudipta from Technical Potpourri and welcome to my another video. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about all the powerful flow features that came with Winter 25 release. So without wasting any more time, let's jump to our Winter 25 org and see all these powerful flow features. Before I start, I'd like to let you know that I have published a couple of videos about Winter 25 release. So if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend that you go to my Technical Potpourri YouTube channel and then you can go to playlist and here you'll find the Winter 25 release. So you can click on this playlist and it will show you all the videos that I have published or I'm going to publish in future about this Winter 25 release. So I highly recommend you to please subscribe to my channel so that you came to know about all my upcoming videos. Okay, enough talk. Let's jump to our Winter 25 org and see all these powerful flow features. Okay, so here I am in my Winter 25 org. So the first feature that I'm going to talk today is called the action button. This action button become generally available in this release and it became very powerful. So I've already built a flow where I've used the action button and I'm going to first give you a demonstration what it's going to do. So if you can see, this is my home screen and here is a flow component that I've built. It's a very basic flow component. I'm going to enter number 1 and number 2 and then click on this add button. Add is basically an action button. It's going to call another auto launch flow and do an addition of these two numbers. As you can see here, initially the add action button is visible. The moment I'll put some values on both these fields, number 1 and number 2, this will become automatically enabled and I click on that. Now clicking on that is going to call our auto launch flow, which might take a little bit of time. So during that time, you'll find this text in the action button will change. And finally, when the result will come back, that's the moment this additional result currently which is in disable mode, it will become enabled and then this will show the actual result. So let's put here 2 and let's put 5. The moment I'll put 5, this button will become enabled. I'll put 5, this button become enabled. Now clicking on that is going to call the auto launch flow, but you see what will happen when the auto launch flow will do the calculation and everything. It will show loading and finally the result came as 7 and this result section become enabled. So let's see what I have built in the flow. For that, I'm going to the flow section. First, the auto launch flow, which is basically this flow, I believe. Yep. So this is a very basic auto launch flow. It's having 3 variables, number 1, number 2, and additional result. Where number 1 is basically an input variable. Number 2 is also an input variable. And additional result is also an input and output variable. And here what I'm doing basically in the additional result, I'm storing the value of add. Add is basically a formula of where I'm adding the number 1 and number 2. So very basic flow, which is basically doing the addition of number 1 and number 2. And this is auto launch flow, which I'm going to call from the action button. So for that, let's go to the action button flow. Let's open the flow and it's basically a screen flow. So this is the screen element. Here is the first text, which is basically the number 1. Here is the second text, which is basically the number 2. And then this is the result, which should display the result. And this is the action button. So the moment I bring the action button, I can add. I put the label as add. And then here is basically the flow, which I call do add flow, which is this flow. And here you can see in the advanced section, here is telling the refreshed input to incorporate changes anywhere in the flow. So the reason this is a feature that came in Winter 25 release, what it's basically doing, when I'm calling the flow and passing number 1 and number 2, I want to display the flow output variable inside this one. Now, when I call the flow, the result come back. Normally, we need to refresh the page to get the result. Now, if the output or input changes anywhere in the flow, then by clicking on this one, we don't need to refresh. That's why when the result came back, for example, here, if I refresh one more time, like 4 and 3, I don't need to refresh to get the result back. I click on add 7 came from the auto launch flow, and that's getting displayed here. So if you go back to my here in the additional result section, the default value is basically the do at flow, which is basically this flow result and the additional results. If you see here, do at flow is the action button, and then it's having the result, which is the result, and in the result I have the additional result, which is coming from this flow, addition result. So this is something that you can do. Also, this button, you can make it enable or make it disable. So the component visibility here, there is a property called disabled. Normally, it takes a boolean. It takes whether I should disable this button or I should not disable this button, right? So show display is basically, should display is basically a variable which I can show you here, should display. And what is basically doing, if the number 1 and number 2, if one of them is null, then this formula is returning true, and this formula is getting used inside here. If the formula becomes true, then this add button is basically disabled. That is why when unless I put both the values, this add button is always disabled. The moment I put both the values, it become enabled. So these are the couple of powerful enhancement that came up in the action button, and at the same time this action button become GA in Winter 25 release. So it's a very powerful feature. I'm sure that you are going to like this feature and going to implement this feature in your project. Okay, so with that, the next feature that I'm going to talk about is called the enhanced flow repeater component. For that, I've already prepared a dedicated video because this is a very important feature and it needs an individual dedicated video. So I've already published a dedicated video about this flow enhanced repeater component. You will find the link in the top right corner as well as in the description of this video. But if you normally go to my YouTube channel and go to my YouTube channel and search here in my YouTube channel, search for repeater, you will find that there is a video published 3 weeks before how to pre-populate flow repeater component with the data collection. This is a powerful feature which is getting enhanced in Winter 25 release. So I highly recommend that you watch this video and use this powerful feature in your project. It will help to implement a lot of complex use cases in a very simplified way within your Salesforce flow. Okay, let's go back here. The next feature that I'm going to talk about is when we create a record inside Salesforce, how we can make that create or update record feature more efficient. So in Winter 25 release, when you create a record, say for example, you have a list of records and you want to insert the list of records. Now, if some of the record is already present, you have to update the record. If the records are not present, then you are going to insert the record. So normally, but before the insert, we check whether the record is present or not. If present, then do the update. If not present, then do the insert. But with Winter 25 release, you don't need to do all this checking and all this logic. Inside the insert statement, insert element, all you can do, you can tell flow to check for existing record based on some parameters, based on some values, and then you can go from there. For example, I've written a flow here, improved record creation. What is basically doing is basically a display where I am using the flow repeater component, and what is doing is basically I'm asking to put the account name, account number, and external ID, and then I'm going through a loop to find out going through a loop which is basically going through all the repeater components and then storing the value inside a single account record. Like single account or account name is basically the current input and then enter account name, current input or enter account number, external ID is basically the current input and the current element from the loop and then the enter external ID. And once this assignment is done, I'm going to store this one account into a list of accounts. And then I'm going to use the list of accounts to create the accounts. Now create account from a record variable, multiple all accounts, but here is the important part. What is going to do in this screen only or in this element only, you can find out if the record is already present And if the record is present, then you can do the update insert instead of update insert. So how you can do that? For example, here what I'm telling is that check for the external ID. Here if you remember, here I am telling to put the external ID. So if there is already an account present with a matching external ID, then in this stage, what I'm telling is that if there is already an account with a matching external ID, do not do an insert, rather do the update. So let's debug this flow and see this in action. For that, let's go to my account and all account. So I have a couple of accounts here. So let's take this one. Let's put account number as this. Account number as, let's say, put hello, and external ID as put this value, which is basically the matching, which is basically the existing record. Let's choose one more account, which is hello world test. Here let's bye and external ID put 5697 something, right? And let's click on next. So now if I refresh this page, what will happen is that this one, based on the external ID matching, record found, the only thing changed is the account number. But this one, hello world, this one, it's a new account that is getting created. So in one single screen, you can find out whether the record is already present or not. If the record is present, do the update. If the record is not present, do the insert. You don't need to do all those logic and find out all those calculation and checking whether the record is present or not. You can do everything from one single create record element. So that's an enhancement that is coming up that is available after Winter 25 release. And this is a very powerful one again. Okay, so the next feature is basically how you can enable and disable screen components at runtime. After Winter 25 release, you have the option to disable fields on the action button, dependent pick list, lookup, phone, and all this one. So basically, as you saw in the action button flow, there will be a property called disabled. There will be a property called disabled. It takes boolean like true or false. If the disabled equals to true, it means this variable will not be displayed. It's kind of grayed out. And if it's false, then it's active. You can take action. You can click on that or you can take action. But if it is disabled equals to true, then it means that you cannot take any action. So this is something that is coming up in Winter 25 release. A lot of elements is getting this disable property. For example, here also, this is a text box, text number, and you have the disabled option. Similar way, you have, if I put pick list, I believe pick list also have the disabled one. Yeah, this is also getting the disabled. So there are a lot of elements which are getting this disabled functionality, and you as a developer, you can decide when to disable and when not to disable, when make it active. Okay, with that, let's talk about the next one. The next feature that is coming up in Winter 25 release, which I really like, is basically the enhanced choice lookup. So for that, let's open up this hello one screen flow. Let's open up this new screen flow. And as you can see here, this is a very basic flow where I'm asking enter your skills. And here I have multiple choices like Salesforce Apex, Salesforce LWC, Salesforce Admin. Now I have the option to decide whether from here is multiple selection is allowed or multiple selection is not allowed. So see how it behaves when multiple selection is not allowed. So if I debug here, enter a skill, all these three options will come. You can select only one. But it might happen that you have multiple skills you want to select here, right? In that case, all you need to do here, select this one, let user select multiple options and done. And then activate. And now if I debug this one, this is how it will behave now, or it will display now. So I can select this one, it will come here. I can select this one, I can select this one, I can select all of them, or I can remove one by one. So this is a enhanced choice lookup component that is coming up in Winter 25 release. Okay, with that, let's talk about the feature enhancement that is coming up in the data table. So for that, let's open up this Hello One flow. And basically what I'm doing here is basically I'm fetching all the accounts from my org and then displaying the accounts in the data table. Now in the data table, what I can do here when we are doing the configure row, I can decide whether I want my users to select multiple rows or select single row. So if I allow them to select only single rows, like I select this one, and then if I do the debug, this is how it will look like. It came as a checkbox. But since it's a single selection, the moment I select this, all are grayed out. Now to deselect this, I have to select here and then select the next one. While selecting the next one, I cannot select the other one. I need to go back here, deselect, and then choose the next one. Now, to make it more user-friendly, there is an option that is coming up here on the data table where when you do the configure row, you select single, but here require user to make a selection. If you select this one and done and save, activate, and do the debug, what you will find is that instead of checkboxes, it became radio button. With the radio button, the beauty is if you select here and you decide, no, this is not the correct selection, I need to select this one, you can directly go and select here and that will deselect this one. You don't need to go to the top one to deselect everyone, then select one. So it saves one more click and it's more user friendly. So this is one thing, and definitely you can do multiple selection. Done. Fed. Debug. And here you can do multiple selections. And you can deselect all or you can select all. Yeah. So this data table is getting enhanced in Winter 25 release. Okay. We are getting, if there is any error in the flow, for example, here, let's say this data table, right? This data table needs this one, this variable from where it should show the data. If somehow I forgot to put this one and click on done, it will show me there is an error that this is not possible. So I need to select that. Or let's say in the configure row, in the configure columns, let's say only the first element. Okay, perfect. Then if I try to save the new version, what will, yes, this is what I was trying to show you. So if I make this record element, instead of all records, just select the first record, then it's a one record, and I'm trying to use that inside this data table, but data table 1 expects a list of records, right? So in that case, you will get an error message here that is telling that this input parameter cannot accept multiple values. So assigned value must be a flow variable with is collection property set to 2. Basically what it's telling is that this select account, which is basically this account, it cannot use this one. It has to be a element which is basically a list element or a collection element. So all I need to do is basically I need to go back and do all records, and then this problem should be solved. But all I'm trying to say is that with Winter 25 release, you will find these errors and the warning option, and this will show you in a very well understandable, in a very good message, which can be easily understandable, that what is the problem going on with your flow. Okay. Another feature that is coming up is basically in the flow. Let's build a flow quickly, and let's say if the flow is not following the best practices, then what will happen? Can the flow give me some kind of warning? So let's do a auto launch flow. In the auto launch flow, let's get all accounts first. No condition, get all accounts. Okay. And then I want to use the loop. So loop, basically, let's give it a name as loop 1. is going through all the accounts, and inside loop I'm creating another loop. This loop is basically, let's say, loop 2, which also I'm going through all the accounts. Now the moment I did that, here I'm getting an tips, and if I open that, it's telling is that avoid using loop inside a loop. The loop elements can slow down the flow. So basically all is telling using a loop inside a loop, which basically are not following the best practices, and it can slow down the entire process. So it's telling to not use that. So this is a very good, I'd say, starting point, that if flows are not following the best practices, Salesforce is giving you the warning or giving you the suggestion that these are the things that which might make your flow behave very slowly. So should not do that. So very good feature, and I'm quite sure this feature will become more powerful in coming days, but this is a very good starting point. So a big thank you to Salesforce. And then let's get rid of that. And then the last element which I want to show you is basically the send email. So if you use this option called send email, now here you have the BCC also. Previously it was only the CC and 2, but now with this Winter 25 release, you can also include your BCC address list. So these are a couple of my favorite features from Winter 25 release. So let me know what is your favorite one. And if I miss anything, if you think there is a feature which should be part of this video, let me know. I'll be more than happy to create another dedicated video on that topic. But that's all for today. I hope you like this video. If you like the video, please hit the like icon. Please share to your friends, your colleagues, so that they came to know about all these new powerful features. And please subscribe to my channel so that you came to know about all my upcoming videos. Till then, thank you. Bye-bye.